This single empire once made trade safer than it had ever been in human history. And from that same bloodline came a princess who challenged men to wrestling matches and walked away with their horses every single time. But to understand her story, we have to start with the man who changed the world first. When people think of Genghis Khan, they think destruction, war, conquest, and that part is true. But what most people miss is this. After uniting the Mongol tribes, he didn't just build an empire, he built a global system. Trade routes that were once dangerous and broken suddenly became protected. Caravans could move across Asia without fear. Merchants could travel thousands of miles under one rule. Ideas, goods, and cultures started moving faster than ever before. This period became known as the Pax Mongolica, a rare moment in history where most of Eurasia was connected under one system of peace and control. Silk from China, spices from India, silver from Europe. Everything began to flow. But empires don't just shape economics. They shape people. And generations later, that same empire produced one of the most unexpected figures in Mongol history, a woman who refused to live by anyone's rules. Her name was Khutulun. Around the year 1260, Khutulun was born. She was born into royalty, a descendant of Genghis Khan's line. She was not ordinary royalty. She was the daughter of Khutulun Khan, one of the most powerful rulers in Central Asia at the time. By 1280, her father controlled massive territories, from western Mongolia to the Oxus region, stretching deep into Central Asia. But instead of raising Khutulun to sit in a palace, she was raised for war. From childhood, she trained in horse riding, archery, and wrestling. In Mongol society, strength was survival, and Khutulun didn't just meet expectations, she shattered them. But unlike most princesses in other parts of the world at the time, Khutulun didn't grow up to stay in a palace. She grew up in the saddle. In Mongol culture, strength mattered more than appearance. And Khutulun took that personally. She trained in wrestling, archery, and horseback combat, and quickly became known as one of the strongest fighters in her entire clan. But what made her truly famous wasn't just her skill, it was her challenge. Khutulun made a bold decision. Any man who wanted to marry her had to beat her in wrestling first. But there was a twist. If they lost, they had to give her horses. And in the Mongol world, horses weren't just animals. They were wealth, power, and survival. So men came from far and wide, thinking they could defeat a princess. They all failed, one by one. Some were strong warriors, others were nobles. Some came confident and left humiliated. And Khutulun didn't just win. She reportedly collected hundreds, even thousands of horses through these matches. Her reputation spread across the steppe like fire. Of all Khutulun Khan's children, Khutulun was his favorite. He trusted her more than many of his sons. He often consulted her on political and military decisions. In fact, according to some accounts, Khutulun even considered naming her as his successor. Think about that, a warrior princess, being considered for leadership of a khanate, in one of the most violent political systems in history. But she refused. Khutulun reportedly said she did not want the throne for herself. She preferred her brother Horus to take leadership instead, not because she lacked power, but because she wanted the battlefield more than the throne. When Genghis Khan died around 1301, chaos followed. Khutulun didn't retreat into silence. She went to war, not for power, but for stability. She helped guard her father's tomb alongside her brother Horus. But not everyone accepted this order. Her other brothers, including Chapa, and rival relatives like Dua, challenged her authority and resisted her influence. The empire she was born into began to fracture, and through it all, Khutulun remained a central figure, not as a queen on a throne, but as a warrior trying to hold a collapsing legacy together. But Khutulun wasn't just a storybook fighter. She fought in real battles alongside her father, Genghis Khan, the powerful ruler in Central Asia. She rode into war like any male warrior. She led attacks. She defended territory. Even travelers from faraway lands wrote about her. The Venetian explorer Marco Polo described her as a warrior princess, unlike anything he had ever seen. In his accounts, she wasn't just admired. She was feared and respected. But her story also had political tension. Some sources say her father tried to use her marriage to secure alliances. But Khutulun refused to be controlled. She chose independence over politics. There are different versions of how her life ended. Some say she eventually agreed to marry, but only after no man could defeat her. Others say she never truly married at all. But what remains consistent across every story is this: Khutulun was never a background character in history. She was a warrior in her own right, from the same bloodline that built the largest empire the world had ever seen. And it all traces back to one man, Genghis Khan, who unknowingly created not just an empire of conquest, but a world where even a princess could become a legend through strength alone. She eventually died in 1306. But here's the real question. Was Khutulun a rare exception in history? Or were there more forgotten warrior women like her hidden in the Mongol Empire?